Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Readings with the Librarian. Today, we have a very special guest with us. Not only Nina here, who is going to be talking, but also we have Shelley Pearsall, who is the author of the book, The Seventh Most Important Thing, which was on our Reading Olympics list this year. She has written many other books, and we'll let her tell us all about that here today. But Nina has a few questions for her. So, Nina, take it away.
Okay. Hi. I really liked your book. Um, I read it before. Like, I know I didn't have to read it for Reading Olympics, but I just reread it, and I really liked that book.
Awesome. Thank you. I love it when readers read my books twice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. So, when did you first realize you wanted to be an author?
I don't even know if it was something I realized. It was just, it was kind of part of my, who I am, part of my personality. I started out in kind of first grade being one of those kids that couldn't sit still. I was a talker. Some of you watching this may relate to that. And so my teacher was having a tough time kind of keeping me focused and from, keep bothering the other kids. And so she would let me write stories on the back of worksheets in first grade just to kind of keep me in my seat and from causing trouble. And so I just kind of got this sense that writing was something like a reward that you got to do after you finished your work. And, I would race through like whatever the assignment was to get to the like writing part at the end. So, and then she was nice enough. She would pass my stories around the school, like, give one to the custodian or the principal, and they'd write a little note back to me. And so again, I started to get this idea that writing is, communication, and you get that great feedback. And so, kind of from that point on, I started to see myself as, as a writer. I don't know that I ever thought I would do this as a career. I mean, I think that's the part that I never, envisioned happening. I don't come from a family of writers. Nobody in my family was really in a creative career. And so I didn't know how, like, it just was beyond me that you could actually make this your life's work. So that took a little bit of time, like later on in my life, to have the courage to, to make that leap. Oh, and by the way, I can show you this. This is what my stories looked like when I was a kid, just to kind of compare them to what I write now. This one. Now, sadly, I grew up before home computers, and so they're very homemade looking. So this one's called, yeah,
Looking at the illustrations too.
Yeah, I did the illustrations, my nice crayon, title. And then even more impressive, I guess, is the handwriting, everything, like I said, had to be handwritten. So I wrote on a lot of different topics when I was a kid, and I still kind of follow those same, the same path today. So that was a really long answer to your question.
No, that's fine. And you know what? In all the books I've written, I would agree with that statement that you don't sit in one genre, which is great. You are definitely all over the place with your plot elements.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. And I've always been that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Write a book.
Was it how long does it take me to write a book?
Yeah.
It depends on the book. The Seventh Most Important Thing took me about 2.5 years to write. And that's my typical, pattern. It's about two to 2.5 years. One book of mine took 4 years. So, anywhere between 2 and 4 years. Just to give you an idea, I usually do anywhere between 6 and 12 drafts per book. So this is just 6 of the 12 drafts for The Seventh Most Important Thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know it looks scary, but I kind of think of it like, any sport where you have to kind of practice to, get better and better. So like each of these drafts, I'm getting, the story obviously is getting better and better. It even had a different title originally. So this was the title. It was called Metallic.
I think I like The Seventh Most Important Thing title better.
So pretty much, my editor and most of the publishing house did as well. I should pull the book back here. So yeah, and actually the title came from my editor. I was just really kind of having a tough time coming up with a title for this book, and she was the one that suggested that as a title. So I have to give her credit for that title.
Okay. What is your favorite book that you have not written?
Gosh, that's a tough question because I love to read. So there's so many that have been favorites. I think for middle school, I would say Holes has always been one of my favorites. I loved Wonder. I didn't read that as a kid, but that's one of my favorites. Let's see. I actually have a whole like shelf over here of favorites. So I'll, like check over. Rain is another one that
Oh yeah.
it's about it's a boy or a girl with autism, but really emotional, beautiful story.
Is that
And
book by the girl that were babysitters?
No, but it was on the Reading Olympics list last year, so you may have read it last year.
which one was
Rain,
Rain?
Rain. Yeah, it was on the Reading Olympics
Yeah,
list
yeah.
last
It
year.
was like in a month.
Yeah, that's just a beautiful story. And there's a nonfiction book that's a favorite of mine called Moonbird, which is follows the migration of a bird for its lifetime. And I know it sounds like a strange topic, but you just get so into, is this bird going to survive each year? And the bird's called Moonbird because it's gone the distance to the moon and back. I think multiple times in its life, the amount of miles that it flies in its migration pattern. So that's another favorite.
What's your favorite book so far that you've read? Nina is an avid reader. She is always
Yeah,
in the
yes.
library
I'm
reading.
always looking for new.
Oh my god.
She's also a fantasy reader too.
Yeah, I think
Yeah. Do you have a favorite series?
Caraval.
The
Definitely.
Caraval series.
Definitely. I love those books.
Oh, I haven't read that.
It's really those books are really good.
Yeah, there's 3 books and it's a trilogy. Caraval's the first one.
Okay. And they're fantasy?
Yes, young adult
Fantasy.
fantasy.
I'll have to check that out.
There's one of like Maggie. I'm not really good with remembering titles. I remember what the books are about. I don't remember the title though. It's about a girl with autism that was on a boys baseball team. Or it was like she was trying to be on a boys baseball team, and the boys were just being mean to her, and she was like writing to this famous baseball player.
Vivi Cohen, is that the?
Oh, that might be it.
Yeah.
That was good. I never read about Maggie.
I think it's Batter Up Vivi Cohen. I forget the exact name. Vivi Cohen is in the title of the book.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that. I just finished a series, and of course I can't recall the first book in the series either, but it's and it takes place, it's kind of a sci-fi fantasy mix, and also steampunk. And it's a planet where things rain down from from Earth. They come through the atmosphere, and then the people collect some of these remnants of Earth, and then they, kind of figure out what to do with them. But it's a really interesting kind of steampunk fusion genre, and I can't remember the name of it to encourage all of you to try it out. But if it comes to me, I'll email you.
It'll come to you in the middle of this. So you'll just all of a sudden
I'll email you the
shout it out.
Yeah.
All right. You need one more question.
I didn't hear all of that question.
What is the most difficult part about writing a book?
I think the first draft, I'd say, because you have this concept in your imagination, and you want it to come out on the paper perfectly, and what comes out on the paper is nothing like what you imagined. And it's for me at least, it's such a slow process to kind of pull those ideas from my mind and get them on paper. And so that first draft is really a painful process. But then once it's on paper, and I can kind of see, well, the ideas are there. I just have to really shape them into something beautiful. Very much like Mr. Hampton in the story, taking trash and turning them into, a beautiful sculpture. I have to take those pieces that probably should be thrown away and, turn them into something, something beautiful by the end. And that's the part of the process I love, is when I get to see how something gets transformed by the end of the stories, or by the end of the process. So first draft is tough. I would say the other thing that's tough is reviews. So once your book is, out in the world, you get professional, reviews, and those are just scary, and I try not to read them.
Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad.
Yeah, sometimes they're good, but you always, what sticks in your mind, I mean, this is true with social media too, are the bad ones. you know, so that's, I kind of don't read the good or the bad. Just kind of prefer to let the book be out in the world and not have to, you know, not have to deal with positive or negative feedback. So that's an advice for all of you that follow social media all the time.
Um,
Just like tune it out.
all right, so it's actually a question for both of you. I'm going to start with Nina. So, what was your favorite part of the book? Without giving away spoilers, what was your favorite part of the book?
I don't think it's so hard.
I guess the spoiler is really the ending, but
Yeah, I know it's hard for me to even talk about the story because, you know, you give away so much,
yeah.
even by saying the inspiration. So
What do you think?
Um,
So it's hard not to give spoilers. How about I start with, well, Nina's thinking. I'll start with you. So, what was your favorite part of the book?
no, I can't give a spoiler either. You know, I love the part where the main character discovers what Mr. Hampton is working on.
Oh,
And,
that's my
and I
favorite
had,
part too.
yeah, I had so much fun writing that scene because I really tapped into my experience when I first saw the, you know, the inspiration for the story myself. And I was just, it just completely blew my mind. I mean, I was in an art museum, walk into this room and see this, you know, thing. And it just was amazing to look at, and then to read the story behind it. I kind of never forget that experience. So I guess I would say that. What else was a favorite? I mean, I love the scene with Squeak when he stands on the table in his school cafeteria,
Oh, yeah.
holding up a sign to try to protect the character of Arthur, or try to protect Arthur, his friend. So that was fun and it was fun to kind of take the different objects in the story and figure out, like, they all have different meanings. They're not just part of what Mr. Hampton is working on. They're also part of Arthur's, you know, Arthur's process of getting through the loss of his father. So it was interesting seeing how different objects, like a light bulb or like a mirror, what they would mean on different levels.
yeah. Okay, my favorite part is the end, but I won't.
Your favorite part is the end, like the very, very end, or the thing that happens just before the end? The very, very end?
Yeah.
I can't say like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to find out. I think I know exactly what you're saying. I think that for a lot of readers, the revelation at the end is just really, you know, really, and that's what it was interesting because when this book was published, you know how they always do the little description, and in that description, which actually editors write. I don't know if you know that authors don't write these. This is usually the editor writes this. So
I didn't know that either. There you go.
Yeah, or the marketing department, but never the author. Anyway, in the first description they wrote, they gave away that surprise. And I'm like, you can't do that. You know, I've spent the whole book trying to like pull readers to that surprise at the end. You can't give it away on the flap of the book. So yeah, so it almost was given away there. But I even have to be careful on my website because I try not to, you know, give away too much there as well. So yeah, I'm glad you like that part.
I will say, in knowing that about the flap summary, that makes 100% sense, because sometimes I hate the summaries they put on there. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, the author could not have written this. This is not something the author would have done, because sometimes if I've read the book, they're like terrible descriptions of the book. And
yeah, it's excruciating. I mean, I can say, probably speaking for most authors, when they send us what's going to go there, it's excruciating.
Yeah.
Like, we want to rewrite it. I mean, I think almost always. And I've actually tried like to write to my editor and say, you know, how about using this sentence or this one? But they're very kind of particular about that's their part of the process. So actually I know you've heard this saying before, but nothing usually on the, you know, the jacket of a book is something that the authors created. So, I mean, sometimes they use an excerpt from the story, and obviously that's from the book. But, you know, usually this is all created by the marketing department and the editor. So always read the first page.
Yeah.
Because
our cover's silver. We have the blue cover in our library.
the silver was on the hardcover.
Okay.
It's a more expensive paper. You know, obviously, and so that's why they used it for. I love the silver. And look, this was just to show you how much covers changed. This was one of their when I still had the title metallic. was still using that. This was one of their first designs. I don't know if you can see this, but it's a line art drawing.
Oh, I like that. That's pretty cool though. I agree that the final title is better, but I like
Yeah.
that drawing on there. That's cool.
And again, it kind of comes down to the marketing department gets to look at that and give it a yay or a nay. Is that
Right.
going to appeal to people who see it on a bookshelf or not? And this was a definite thumbs down. And so then they went back to the drawing board and created
And
something.
came up with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, it's interesting to find some new things about the actual like cover art and the summary and things like that about the book. And the last thing I'm going to ask you is your writing space. It looks like behind you, and you're sitting in your writing space. Can you tell us a little bit about your writing space?
Sure. I'll share some of the most important things in the writing space. What you see behind me right here, this is kind of the fan wall. So this is where I put, and you can actually see a lot of connections to the seventh most important thing there on the wall. But it's where I put notes from readers. You can see art, photographs of favorite school visits or readers that really made an impact on me. And that changes a lot. But that's what I look at when I'm writing. So it kind of reminds me, what I write, who I write for, and why I write. Because a lot of these letters talk about the impact that a particular story or character had on a reader. Over here, you can probably see that's a framed letter. That's actually my first rejection letter, which I got when I was 13 years old as a seventh grader. I tried to get published in seventh grade. I sent a story to New York, and they promptly rejected it. So I learned pretty early on that rejection is a part of writing and life, I guess, as well. But this letter, it means a lot to me. I'll show you a close-up version.
Did that book ever get published? Did you ever go back to the drawing board?
No, it was a story about Vietnamese refugees, which was a big topic when I was growing up, and I wanted to teach kids about. I wanted other kids to know about what those refugees were going through. And it was like 30 pages long, and it was my best writing, but not good enough to be published.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that's the idea of a journey to freedom and all of that kind of became the theme of my very first book that was published, which was an Underground Railroad story. So I kind of think, even though I was rejected, that seed of that story became the seed of my first published book later on,
which we have here in the library.
Yeah, there you go. And this is a kind of a close-up. I don't know if that's really going to come through with the shine, but that's the letter. So it was a pretty long letter and actually gave me some nice advice for becoming an author someday. So it wasn't quite as painful of a rejection as I think. All right, so my favorite saying, you'll be able to see this, is on the fireplace, which is carpe diem, which means seize the day. So I love that, kind of start out the day with that. I don't know if you can see the little creature here on the mantle.
Yeah.
That's my office mascot. It's a sloth because like I said, I'm a very slow author. And so the sloth reminds me it's okay to be a slow creature.
Yeah, you get there.
Yeah. And Mike, do you want to get the one thing off the shelf? So on this side of the room are all the bookshelves. You can see my grandpa letter. And on the bookshelf, that's my husband, Mike. All right, and on the bookshelf is one of my, I guess I would say, other than Mike, the most important thing in my office, which is a little note that my grandfather wrote to me when I was 7 or 8 years old. And it says, "To my granddaughter, who someday will be a known author."
Oh,
so
look at that.
Yeah, Grandpa was kind of psychic, I guess. He never had the chance to see me become a published author, but I keep a picture of him right by all my published books. And so,
well, that's nice.
So those are some of the important things in the office. And again, it's supposed to be a creative space that, when you step into the office, I'm inspired to write. So I try to keep things here that inspire me.
All right. That was great. Thank you so much.
That's the quick tour.
We appreciate you taking time out of your day. Is there anything else that you would like to kind of tell us about the book or anything else about your writings to entice our readers, including Nina, to read more?
Sure. Well, I hope, first of all, definitely check out the seventh most important thing. I think it'll keep you turning the pages, and you've already heard there's some big surprises in the story. I guess I would also, I can tell you I'm working on a new book, which is actually fantasy.
Oh, there you go.
Those fantasy readers. It takes place in Scotland. And it's about an island where some large eggs begin to wash ashore, and they contain recently extinct species. So things like auks, great auks, passenger pigeons, and so, two kids on the island find these eggs and quickly realize that, you know, having the last of a species can be both great and dangerous, because there's a lot of people who would like to, you know, own the last of a species. So it's how the kids get these extincts first of all, keep them alive, and how they get them back to where they originally are from. So that's my latest project. It's called Extinction Island, but I think that title is going to be changing pretty soon.
Well, as we found out today, the process definitely
Yeah,
has
that definitely
from
changes
start
a
to
lot.
finish.
So, and I'll give you one more sneak peek at kind of the writing process. This is how I create characters, if I can find them here. So in the story, there's a character in the seventh most important thing. There's a character named Squeak, and he becomes a kind of the best friend of the main character of Arthur. And so this was my brainstorm for creating Squeak. And so this is how I usually start out with the character name, and then all around that name, I come up with, you know, what they're going to look like, what their personality is going to be like, you know, anything that I, you know, can imagine about them. And this is one of the parts of the writing process that I love, is just when I get to, you know, create a character. This is the main character of Arthur.
Oh, okay. So that,
So,
yeah, all the things connected.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
kind of fun to just sit there, and sometimes you get some surprises when you're creating a character. You have one idea in mind, and then something else appears on the page, and that's kind of cool. That's when writing is almost, you know, there's almost an element of magic to it. Sometimes you wonder where, you know, some idea came from or some character came from. So that's a little glimpse into the writing of a book and the life of an author.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming on here today, and I look forward to all the people that are going to come in the library and check out not only the seventh most important thing, but some of your other books as well that we have here. So thank you once again for joining us, Nina. Thank you for being here
Thanks,
as
Nina.
well, one of our
Keep
readers.
reading.
And thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Readings
Okay.
with Librarians.
Okay.